Hi everyone, welcome to a new LinkedIn Live session. Today we're going to have a look at the DataMiner Teams integration, and our purpose is with this session that you're inspired to get started with this on your own and that you understand very well what's possible with this. Before we get started, let's quickly introduce ourselves because I'm not alone here today. My name is Joey, I'm a system engineering manager at Skyline, and I'm a DataMiner ChatOps enthusiast, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I am Baptiste. I'm actually the product owner of everything that's cloud related. My team has been responsible for all the development on the ChatOps.
You'll make sure if I say something wrong,
I'll try to correct you and I'll answer all of your questions.
Before we get started, maybe Baptiste, a quick question. Why a LinkedIn Live on DataMiner Teams?
Yeah, so as we see it today, and it will only come to increase in the future, all of the organizations are revolving around data. And basically, it's what you can do with that data, all right? So a lot of data is flowing in, but you really have to organize yourself and you have to make sure that you can structure that data, but also that everyone can access it and be able to leverage all of that data to its full extent. So if we look at DataMiner, for example, there's a lot of monitoring data coming in from all of the devices that are connected. And the thing is that there are a few different ways to have a look at that data. So you can use the DataMiner Cube UI, which will mostly be used by operators. But of course, everybody knows about the dashboards that you can use and create. And we also have some custom apps. Now, not everyone has the knowledge or even the time to create all of these dashboards and custom apps. So we try to make all of this data as conveniently accessible as possible. And one of these things is actually the ChatOps, where anyone with the Teams account can connect to a DataMiner system and they can send some queries, they can request some data, and they can get an overview on how the system is performing, and what is going on. So that's actually the reason why we are here. We want to make it very accessible to get that data, and ChatOps is the prime example of this implementation.
All right, maybe talking about ChatOps, if there are any questions throughout the session, feel free to use the chat. We have some people available to answer that, and maybe at the end we can come back to a few if needed.
Yeah, maybe before we continue, it's also very important to know that when we talk about ChatOps, there's actually a few different pillars to the ChatOps. So we can divide it in three steps, I think. So the first one is the one that you can see on screen. It's the DataMiner bot that we have created. This is really made to give you a chance to have a conversational interaction with your DataMiner system. And you can say like show alarms and stuff. So we'll have a look at that. The second one is notifications. We'll also touch upon that, where you can use notifications from your DataMiner system within your Teams tenant to notify a channel, a certain person, or a groups chat of something that's happening. And then we have a last part that's a bit smaller. That's where you can actually do some automations from within DataMiner to your Teams tenant. So you can tell DataMiner to create channels, add people in there, and then reuse those channels to post notifications, to give updates on bookings and so on. So there's a lot to cover and there's a lot to do with ChatOps.
Yeah, the main focus of today is the bot itself, but we'll use a notification in one of the use cases. Maybe we can get started with the bot and see what's available out of the box before we build something custom.
All right, great.
So if you have a look in my Teams, I have the DataMiner bot already installed. Maybe Baptiste, you can run me through how I would do that if I don't have it yet.
Yes, so normally it can be that the DataMiner bot is not installed yet on your system. So what you can do then on the left-hand side, under where we now see DataMiner, there's like 3 dots, or you can click on the apps indeed. And then from there, it will open up a new window and you can search quite simply for DataMiner. You can open it up. And then here you can choose to either open it, since we already have it installed, but you can also click on the arrow, and then you can add it to a team or a chat or even a meeting if you would like to. If you add DataMiner to a team, it's also automatically added to all of the channels in that team, so you can use it wherever you want. Yeah. So that's actually how you can easily get started. If you click on open, so this is your private conversation. It's still empty, but we'll fill it up with some commands later on.
Maybe starting with the help, just to see what's available.
Yes. So we have a command that can tell you all of the different possibilities that you can do with DataMiner. So here you can see it's posting the cards. It actually tells you what the DataMiner bot can do for you. It tells you how you can configure your system. So that's actually on the second paragraph. And there we already see the first command. It's called change DMS. So one of the most important things when you get started with the bot is that you need to tell the bot to which DataMiner system you want to talk. So you will need to be able to configure that. So if we would type change DMS right now, the DataMiner will first ask us to log in. This is because we need to confirm our DataMiner.services identity.
Yeah, I'm logging in on my other screen now.
All right, and then we are asked to show some, to select an organization. So basically what you see here are all the organizations we are a part of on the DataMiner.services. So if Joey would open up his browser and go to DataMiner.services, so here we can see that he is able to see some systems, and indeed on the top right you have the organization selector. So there's about 5 organizations available for him here, and he has the Zine one selected. If we go back to Teams, we can see that we also have a drop-down, and the same 5 organizations are available for his choosing. For now, we'll connect to the Zine organization indeed. And then the second thing we need to choose is which system we want to connect to. So within the organization, you can have multiple clusters, multiple systems that are connected to DataMiner.services. For this LinkedIn Live, we'll go for the Zine Dev one. And that's it. It's as easy as that. So now we have told the DataMiner bot, I want to connect to this specific system, and we can also see that the active DataMiner system has been set. If you are in doubt, you just enter the conversation, or it has been a long time since you got to the bot, you can always do show DMS, and then the bot will always show you which system has been configured. Now, once we are configured to a system, I think the first thing we want to do is get some data out of it. You can actually see as Joey starts typing that a few of the commands are showing as a suggestion, and so now we'll try to get some alarms. Now, Joey, there's a problem?
Yes, apparently I'm not seeing any alarms yet.
Yes. So we logged into DataMiner.services, but of course the bot does not know what rights we have on the DataMiner system itself. So what we'll do now is link our accounts. So we'll link a DataMiner user on the local system with our DCP account, our account on DataMiner.services. So we'll continue to log on, enter in the credentials for DataMiner, and then indeed we will link the account. So here we can see that Joey linked his DCP account with his DataMiner account, and we can get back to the conversation. Now try to show alarms again. And DataMiner will tell us there's quite a lot of alarms active on the system, and it will also show us the first 10, so we can have a look, see what's going on.
It's by default limited to 10. There's no way to...
No, so this is actually a Teams limitation. So the component that we see here is we call it the cart with a carousel or a carousel in it, and that's limited to 10 entries. So one of the nice things you can do from here is that you can actually open up this alarm in the monitoring app through DataMiner.services. So if we would click on open, then we would see the monitoring app popping up, and we can see that the alarms are being shown. So all of the active alarms are present here, and we can take a look at what's happening on that system.
All right. Any other commands we're trying here?
If you want to have some information on a specific element, you can do that. So you can do show elements. If you don't input anything, it will just fetch all of the elements. But if you know what element you're looking for, you can provide a filter, basically. So if you type in London or something, I suppose you would have some elements that are...
Can I filter on protocol as well, or is it really
no,
the name
it's
of the
filtering on element name, yes.
Yeah, maybe we can have a look on the system
Yes.
and see what elements we have.
So we have
switch,
plenty of...
for example.
Yeah, we can look for site switch. So if you just even type site without switch and you enter, it will return the best matching elements. And then indeed, so we can see we have the slave transmission site 3. And if we, again, try to go through the options,
We have a lot of side
There's
elements.
a lot of side
apparently.
elements,
We can
indeed.
again click through and open
We
up.
can click through, but if we really want to find the side switch, then we can do show element and then side switch. So the more granular or like specific your filter is, the more chances you have. So here we found the element we were looking for. So we have no alarms, which is great for an element.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe wrapping up the standard commands, are there any plans to further extend these?
So actually, not really. We created a few standard commands to get everyone going. The idea is that we invest a lot in the custom commands. Custom commands is something that we'll take a look at later, but basically you can define the input and the outputs of the command, and you can also define all of the logic that will happen on the data miner itself. Why we do this is because we don't know your specific use case, we don't know what your business is doing. Only you have the full control on what you need and what you want from the DataMiner system. So that's why you can create your commands, and then it will match your use case 100%.
Yeah, okay. I guess that's a good transition then to get started with a custom command in this case. Let me open up the DataMiner system, and we'll use for this demo or use case our London view. So here we have two downlink sites, let's say, and one is used as the main, the other as a backup. Eventually, the signal is used somewhere else. So here, let's quickly simulate a problem with our first site. Let me simulate that now over here.
And what's the problem we're simulating now?
In this case, we see that we now have a failure in this site. So what we have implemented in this case is a correlation rule that triggers on any alarm in that site and triggers a script. The script does some handling in the background, and in this case, it will verify both our receivers are in critical alarm. So an operator is asked if he wants to switch to a backup site.
Which we want to do.
If I click yes in this case and close this, you'll see that we are now using the signal from our backup site, which is still okay. And if I open up the Teams tenant here, you will see that we now generate a new, we go down a bit, a new notification. So even though this session is about commands, we are still showing what you can do with notification as well. Maybe quickly on the notifications. Now it was due to an alarm, but it can be anything, I guess. It could be scheduled, could be booking start. Whatever happens in your DataMiner system can trigger this.
That's true. So you can generate these notifications from within an automation script, and basically anywhere that you can call an automation script, you can send a notification from.
Yeah, so now we used the private chat to use the DataMiner bot, but it can be used in a reply to a notification as well.
There's one big difference. Here you have to specifically call out the DataMiner bot, because you have to tell it that you're talking to the bot. Otherwise, the bot doesn't know if you're talking to him. It's like you're just broadcasting to anyone in the conversation.
So in this case, what would be interesting to, for example, request something we didn't show before is actually the view.
Yes.
So with that, we can show a visual, basically, or render a visual in Teams. And I can click through, probably verify alarms. What I really want to try and do here is find the root cause of this problem.
So what we can do is basically we have this visual that you just shown, which can be seen through Cube. But one of the standard commands that we have implemented is actually to also show a view within the bot. So if we were, basically on the road, we don't really have access to a desktop or something, and we still want to see what's happening, we can do show.
Okay, now I need to go to a private conversation.
Yes, so DataMiner will first route you to a private conversation, so we can confirm that you want to execute that action. Yeah,
I'm using another Teams tenant in this case. So
so here again, we need to log in. We need to provide our identity. So this has been done. And now we can go back to the previous conversation, give it a second, and here we can see that we have a rendered version of the visual that we saw before. So indeed, we can see that we have the main site, which is now offline. And then we can see that the signal is being routed through the backup site.
Yeah, so now we can request the alarms here as well, probably, to find or try and find a root cause.
Yes, so this we have all of the alarms on that view.
Yeah, and if we click through these, we can see There are a few problems in this case, and actually signal strength of both our IRDs is 0.
Yes.
So that shows us there's actually a problem with the signal going to these receivers. So probably we'll need to send someone on site, which is in this case what we actually wanted to do with a custom command.
Yes.
So Baptiste, maybe I can just ask you to go on site.
All right.
But before we send you on site, we'll create a custom command for you, very tailored to your needs in this case, because all you are actually interested in there is seeing if that signal strength is getting back up.
Yes.
It's a command we haven't created yet, so we'll do that from scratch now.
All right, sounds great.
So I have Visual Studio open here. First thing I'll do is create a new solution. So I'll go to New Project and select DataMiner Automation Script Solution, because our custom commands are actually using our automation engine in this case. I will show you what is actually specific then to a command for Teams. Maybe also worth noting that this UI here, where you can select the type of DataMiner solution, is brand new. I'm using the latest insider build of DIS, so if you're not familiar with this, this is likely something you haven't used before.
I hadn't seen it. I knew it was coming, but it's nice to see it in action.
So let me click through that, give my...
And maybe also for the people that do know DIS, some changes were also made to the licensing, which is quite exciting. So it's now totally free of charge. So if you have a DataMiner agent, just install DIS and start using it, I would say.
Yeah, nothing should hold you back anymore after this session to get going with this. And then let me add a script name. Maybe I'll just call it signal strength to make it very easy. And this author, it's something very specific for Skyline. You don't need to worry about that. There will be more information on how these templates work. But let's just ignore that for now and let me create that solution. So now we have our script. Let me open up the code. And before we add anything here, one specific thing I can already do is in the XML itself specify the folder where this needs to end up, because I think that's one of the prerequisites to be able to use
if you want to have a script and you want to be able to execute it from within the bot as a custom command, you need to make sure that it's actually in a bot folder. It doesn't really matter how many layers deep it is. So as long as it is in a bot folder, you will be fine. And you can also have multiple bot folders within your entire file structure in the automation app.
Yeah. So now I'll just add it in a root bot folder.
All right.
It doesn't really matter where we add it. And then let me go to the script. So maybe worth highlighting here, it's a custom command. It's tailored specifically for you. We will not worry now on making this fully fledged generic with a lot of input. All we care about for you to go on site is seeing the signal strength of these two elements. So what I'll do is basically request, let me open this up again. Both elements get the signal strength parameter from that, and then just return that very simply as a response. So let me quickly move this here so I can actually see the name of these elements.
That way, once I get the site, I do my fix. I know which script I need to execute, and I'll quickly have an overview on the bare minimum of information that I need.
So first thing I'll do is get both elements. Maybe also worth noting, today it's not an automation training, let's say. We'll go through the script. It will be very easy, but we have a full course on that on Dojo as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Learn how this works. I'll also skip a few corners. I will not write any exception handling or verify is this element actually active. We'll just assume
everything will go well.
Keep it simple. And then the next thing I need to do, of course, is get the signal strength. And for that, I will do a get parameter. And you can also use the name here, but I was always advised to use the ID of parameters instead. So maybe quickly showing how you can also know what ID you are looking for. If I right-click an element, I can go to the definition, and I can actually search on the name. And you can see here it's parameter 143 that I'm interested in. So that way I can just use the ID here. Oh, That's the other one I need. And I'll convert this to an integer in this case. And then let me do the same for the backup IRD. Make sure I select the proper elements. And then now it's time to actually make sure we can show this information in Teams. So what are my options there?
So what you can do there is you can output it as key value. You can also enter some JSON. I think the last thing you can do, but it's totally out of the scope of this LinkedIn, is you can actually build up your own Teams card. If you were wondering about it, it's called Adaptive Cards. If you Google it, you can find even an editor online that will generate the JSON for you, and you could then paste it in here.
Yeah.
What we'll do now probably is just keep it simple, get some key value outputs, so that I'm not confused at the other end when I run my custom commands.
And on using adaptive cards, we can come back in our next example on that briefly, because that will already be implemented. Just highlighting as well, if you do want to get started with this, we have repositories on GitHub with some examples.
Indeed.
So in the custom command examples, we can actually see we have scripts on key value output, JSON output, but also on adaptive cards. But there, of course, you can have a training completely on that only, probably.
Yes, but feel free to take a look at those scripts, download them. You can easily install them even on your DataMiner agents, because we provided some packages. Then you can play with them and see what it does in real life. Here we're just defining the different outputs.
Yeah, let me make sure I select the right one.
Yeah.
All right, that's it, I guess. That's all I actually need. So let me publish that to the agent. Yeah, this can take some time because the first time it actually retrieves all the scripts as well. This is something that's being changed, I guess, as well. But once this is available, you should actually be able to then go on site, but actually verify as well.
All right.
Does this actually return what I need? And then I can also, in the background, reset these values so you actually can solve this as well, or have solved this as well.
So we'll try to simulate all of that. You can maybe already go back to Teams, because we also have show commands command in Teams itself. You could do it on private bots.
Yep.
And there you will get all of the commands that are available on that system.
So those examples are actually on there in this case.
So we tested them.
Quite some.
And you
there's
can
probably
see
too many, actually.
There's probably too many, yes.
Let's check as well if this has been published. So it should be available if I go to the DataMiner. Bot folder, then you can see the signal strength custom command has been added in the meantime.
All right. So I'm looking to run the command actually from my end. As you can see in the alerts channel. I first need to quickly log in. Of course, with all of the security these days. And I managed to log in. So let's see if it takes me back to the conversation now. Or if I will need to run it again. So I'll ask DataMiner to run it again now that I'm logged in. So run strength, exactly the same command as I did before. Okay. It should request me if I want to run. For some reason, the login is not working.
Maybe I can give it a try as well
Yes.
from here, just to check if that works.
It will be best if you run the script.
So in this case, I use to run command signal strength. I don't need to specify the command, actually,
no,
probably.
you can just say run signal strength, and that should also work.
Yeah, so in this case, we see key value pair. This is exactly what we actually defined in our script here. So we kept it very simple.
Yeah,
we could
indeed,
build a full card, but for this case, you going on site using your phone, that's all you actually need. And in the meantime, you also solved the problem. So if I run it again, we'll see that we now have a valid value.
That's
and of
great.
course, we could further extend this. We can do all kinds of things. If I would want to, I can switch back to the main site from here as well. But
yeah,
let's be honest, that's not really the purpose of custom commands.
No.
Pure operator controls are likely still to be done within Cube. We really want to make sure you can leverage it to specific use cases where it makes sense. But switching back to a main site or another site in this case is a pure operator operation. So if I want to, I can just switch back. Of course, it's simulated here, so it's very easy. All right, and with that, let's say wrap up this first use case where we see or create this custom command specifically for an on-site engineer. So with limited access, you can still leverage data from your system.
Yes.
And a second use case we had in mind for today is not really a use case as such, but really showing you how we can collaborate together. So some of you might have seen that on the community, we allowed people to come up with use cases and examples of custom commands they wanted to use.
We got a lot of input there, I see.
We got a lot of input, and I would say most of these were still relatively generic.
Yes.
But we did implement the 5 highest voted that made sense in this case, and all of these are available in public repositories on our GitHub. So one of those is linked to getting info from bookings on your system.
Yes.
And with this second use case, we'll actually show you how you can leverage what we built as example and maybe tailor it to your needs or use some of the code that's on there already. So actually what I did is we have this repository in the Skyline organization.
Yes.
I created a fork myself. You're a better expert than I am.
Perfectly viable, yeah. So what happens here is that we have some code that we make publicly available. The idea is that we still want to keep ownership on the code, but we want to allow other people to do some changes. Now, of course, you cannot change the original repository. So what you can do within Git, it's called forking, and that will basically take a copy of the Git repository in your own organization. You can do some modifications there, and then you can push them to our repository where we can either approve them or we just say, no, it's not really useful what you have changed. And then we can include the changes on our repo, and then it's there for everyone to use.
But with the fork in this case, I can change whatever I want if I'm not interested in making this generic or,
of course.
or merging this.
Yeah, you can create your own copy for your own use as well. So it's really very versatile.
Yeah, all right. So let me maybe again first show, and I'll just use the private chat now. The command I would like to change. Let me actually see if it was one of these or if it's not listed as well. I'll just use it myself because we have a lot of commands on there. Run resource utilization. So in this case, what we actually have as an example is getting info on the usage of resources on your system. So if I quickly show that on the DMA and I go to the SDMN solution in this case, this is an environment where we constantly have new bookings being created. So if I check here, you can see there are bookings on here running and created for the future. Yeah. And with this custom command, we can actually check for a given resource pool what's the usage of this resource, the percentage that it's used over or
Yes.
in the last week.
And that's very important data, because as an organization, you buy a lot of resources, but you want to make sure that you optimally use them and you don't have resources laying around with 0% of utilization and people asking you to buy extra when you're perfectly able to handle all of the bookings with what you have.
Yeah. So if I select the encoder pool, for example,
Okay.
I run this, this will actually get all the resources from that pool, get the bookings of the last week, and then verify the usage of these resources. So of course, that can take a bit longer than depending on how many resources you have, how many bookings you would have. But in the end, we'll return back for every resource in that pool,
All right,
the percentage that it was used. So I need to scroll up quite a bit.
A lot of resources.
And let's say now I want to use this or this code to tweak it to my needs. Maybe I'm in a situation where I get asked often, do we still have capacity for a new event? Something like that. So what I did is I have that fork, I have it open here. And maybe before I change anything, let's quickly run through the code and actually explain, because this is more than the 4 lines of code we created before.
Yes.
So what you have here is we will first of all get the input. So input is defined here in the XML. So what you need to define as a user before you can run this is the name of that resource pool. Then we'll use a resource manager helper here to actually retrieve the resources of that pool, get the reservations for these resources. And in the end, we then use if I scroll down, adaptive card, or we use that nugget actually.
Yes, indeed.
To build the UI, because you can see here, if I go back, that this is in a table. Still fairly simple, I would say.
But it's already more beautiful than just key values. And it's very easy to build up. So,
Indeed. So maybe what I can quickly change if I'm interested in the week to come, and if there are resources available or not, I can change here. In this case, we choose our time frame as the end is today and our start is 7 days ago. So if I change the start to today and the end to a week from now, so I'll add 7 days. Again, we're going quick through this. It's not really coding training, but let's say the heavy lifting is already done for us. The code is already there to get the resources, to get the reservation. So the changes I need to do are fairly
limited,
easy and limited in this case. So the rest we can all keep. And then the only thing we need to change is actually our output. So here we create a table. First thing we do is define the width of our columns and then a title. Maybe I'll change utilization to availability instead. And then here we actually loop through our resources and we can check. In this case, we could define we are only interested in showing utilization above 0%. I'll just get rid of this completely for now.
All right.
And then the only other thing I want to change is the output, because we don't want to show the, let's say, percentage used anymore. Instead, I'll just change maybe if this one, if the duration is more than 0, meaning it's used at some point, then I'll just show not available, and otherwise it's available.
All right.
And then I'll need to change, remove this here, remove the percentage, and I think that's all we need actually. So
could I also get different colors for my cells if I wanted?
Yes, you can do all kinds of things. That's actually also one of the reasons why we allow the community to come up with use cases. If I go back to our GitHub actually and show you where you can find those. So you go to the Skyline Communications organization, first of all, go to our repositories, and if you search for ChatOps, they are organized, let's say, across functionality. So what we did is people came up with use cases. Some were linked to alarms, some were linked to SRM, for example, others to IDP. We grouped them logically together, so we could also eventually build a package around them. The reason why is that if you don't have IDP, for example, in your system, obviously these commands
you don't really
work.
need them.
But if I, for example, use the BPA one, you can also see that every repository contains a README. And here you can see we actually also show with coloring if there's a problem or not. So possibilities are, I would say, quite endless. Going to alarms, for example, as well. I assume we will also have some colors in there, same as there, but there are all kinds of options actually to do that.
Okay, great.
Of course, I will not change that now. Maybe just to add, if you want to use this, you need to use a NuGet for that. It's a Microsoft NuGet, if I'm not mistaken.
The
so if I would want to add that, I can simply go to Tools, NuGet Package Manager. I would search for adaptive card, but here I can see it's already installed.
Indeed.
And then what you do is create a list of adaptive elements, add them to a list, and then we serialize that, right?
We serialize the objects, it gets posted as a JSON, and then we can interpret it in the cloud.
Yeah, so maybe to wrap up this, I'll publish this again, and we can run the command to see if it actually works now with our changes.
And hopefully we can see a forecast for the coming 7 days then.
Yeah, if I didn't make any mistakes, at least. So again, waiting a bit until that's there. And then we should be able to see, or it will take into account, at least if I go back to, what the mic is before me, go back to the bookings, it will take into account all the bookings for the next 7 days and basically run through that and show me what's available. Of course, it's still very limited. You can start tailoring it at input for example, if you looked at the resources here, there's certain capabilities on that. Depending on if it's HD or SD, you might only want to see those resources, but we will keep it still very simple for this case. So let's see, this was published now. So if I go back to my teams, scroll to the bottom because it's still a big list, run it again, select the same pool and run it, then it should now run through all the bookings in the future and show me what's available. So now, of course, we didn't really limit anything. We just took the full week. If you're interested in a specific day, you could add all kinds of inputs. But this is really to show that we have a lot of examples already in there, not only on input, but also on retrieving certain information.
True.
If you want to do this yourself and you get stuck at some point, or you don't know how to get this data, our Dojo platform is there for you, of course. Ask all your questions and we will get back to you and maybe extend our repositories in the future then with more examples based on what's requested. I guess with this use case, we can also conclude this session for today. I don't know if there were any questions we need to come back to or not.
I don't see any, so I think everything was very clear.
Okay, then hopefully you can now all get started with custom chatbot commands of your own and inspire us with more use cases.
All right, thank you for joining us. See you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.